we go. Yes, people, welcome back to Process. Today we are joined by another very special guest, owner of Pioneer Performance, Matthew Walker. Welcome to the podcast, mate.
Happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me on.
No, absolute pleasure, mate. I'm really interested to hear about your story and obviously the gym story yourself. So we'll start off. What was Matthew Walker like when he was younger? Was he into sport? When did you get into the gym? When did it all start for you?
Yeah. So Matthew Walker, when he was younger, I used to live in America.
Right.
So I was born in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, where I was a fantastic footballer at the age of 6 or 7. But then when my parents moved back to the UK, so my parents are from England, they're both from the Northeast. So when we moved back here and I got into primary school, I realized how terrible of a footballer I actually was compared to all the lads who were in my class. So after that, I sort of fell away from that as being my sport, if you will. Then moved into playing rugby as I got into high school. Really enjoyed rugby. Tended to enjoy the training in the process of it, and I suppose the camaraderie more so than the actual matches. I've always felt like I was somebody who sort of suffered with a little bit of evaluation apprehension, in that I was much better in the training process than I ever was against another team where you've got the competition element coming into it. With that, in order to aid playing rugby, as I got older, so probably from about the age of 14 or 15, I then started going to the gym, lifting weights. Always wanted to improve myself physically. And that was definitely coming from a vanity perspective. And I suppose that was potentially frowned upon a little bit. So I always used to mask it with, I'm going to the gym to get bigger in order to play rugby better. And, you always sort of held rugby as that pinnacle thing. But then a similar thing happened in that I enjoyed resistance training more so than I, enjoyed training for rugby and playing rugby. So naturally, that's where my interest for it started. I started much younger than what you were actually allowed to at the time, because of people's beliefs upon the physiology of children, and that used to say you shouldn't resistance train before the age of 16, etc. But I was in the gym at 14, just pretending I was 16. My first gym was actually Springs Light in Kingston Park, which is unfortunately closed down now. But that was that was my first introduction to resistance training. Picked up a lot of men's health magazines, followed workouts, followed Eat Big advice, etc. And then the rest is history.
The rest is history. I like that. It's funny that you mentioned about how when you were playing rugby that you enjoyed the gym, the training, the kind of process aspect of rather than the game. Because I would probably say I was similar to that. I always loved being an athlete, loved the Monday to Fridays, get myself set up, loving training in the morning, gym in the afternoon sort of thing. And I know a lot of other lads who were kind of in that similar sort of process, and hence probably why they went on to be personal trainers, whatever it is. So it's interesting to that's how people develop the passion. They're like, actually, hang on, I enjoy the training more than actually the actual sport itself. Maybe I can actually get a passion and kind of pursue that passion separately, which is funny. And it's funny how you started so young at 14 as well. I don't think I touched the dumbbell until I was probably maybe 17 or 18 kind of things. You've had them extra years. Who are your role models who you kind of looked up to in the men's health magazines back in the day?
Well, I actually didn't know who this person was at the time, but I do now. So one of the first magazines that I bought had a guy called David Godfrey on the cover, and I'm not sure are you familiar with David Godfrey?
I've heard that name. It's going to annoy you. I can't think who he is.
So David Godfrey, he at the time he was probably a hypnotherapist. I think that's where he sort of started his journey in the industry. But him and his wife, Rachel Guy, or Godfrey now, they have a business called Chase Life. But basically, he was a psychologist / personal trainer, and he was on the front cover of a couple of magazines, and had workouts dedicated to him, and these are the training sessions that he'd used and the rep ranges that he'd used, and the days that he trained on in order to build the body, which got him on the front cover of the Men's Health magazine. So yeah, although I didn't really know who he was or anything about him at the time, and the magazine probably actually didn't say anything about him. It was more so, this is our cover, this is our our cover model for the month, and this is what his training looks like. But later on, and this is really just by like chance and coincidence that as I moved into the industry, I sort of learned who this person was and sort of recognized them. Because at the beginning, he was a personal trainer in London for a company called Ultimate Performance, who you might be familiar with. And he was kind of one of their standout PTs, if you will, in that he was like him and another person were on the homepage of the website, etc. And then from then on, I sort of recognized who he was. And then now I've actually been fortunate enough he's been down to being up rather to Pioneer Performance. That was like in our first year of business. Second or third year first year of being in this gym, where he came up and delivered with his wife, delivered a seminar on like mindset and psychology of weight loss and consistency, and NLP. Don't know if that's something that you're familiar with.
Yeah, I know about that. I'm not going to try and say it because I'll end up butchering neuro-linguistic.
Right.
I can't even say that one. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I know exactly what it is. I'm not.
So basically, sort of like adapting your thought process in order to achieve a certain outcome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's crazy how your first kind of insight into fitness was a bit more of a psychological one, because like most, like for me, it was like Mike Rashid, Chris Guzman, Jeff Side, all them sort of like just kind of do a lift weights kind of thing. You kind of a little bit more of an interest, which kind of interests me because I know I've looked at your Instagram and some of the things you follow, and I know you're getting coached off someone from the Muscle Mentor, so you're kind of down that route, which is a little bit thinking outside the box rather than just your old school thing. So it's kind of like really interesting, like I said, where that kind of begins and started off from.
Yeah, I mean, and sometimes this is to my own detriment. Like, I hate following a crowd. Like, I despise it. Like, if everybody, wants to wear a blue t-shirt, I'll wear a red t-shirt. And But I've never really been outlandish or showy-offy with regards to doing that. But I hate following a crowd. So I've always tried to just be like a little bit different in some aspect.
In any sort of way. Where do you think that stemmed from? Do you think it's just being you? Is it like something from your parents, or you're not really too sure? It's just always been one of them things like I don't like being like everybody else.
Because I would never describe myself as a natural leader. It's definitely something that I've had to learn in like adapt in order to fulfill the role that that I've got today. I really couldn't say it. Maybe I've just got like slightly different interests to most people my age.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know for myself, I'm quite different. I'm very similar to my dad in terms of my, like the way that I am, but my interests are completely different to everybody else. Like in my family, like, no one's into fitness. No one's like this much of a nerd about like listening to the best things in like, not just in terms of fitness and muscle mechanics and stuff, but also like psychology and stuff. I'm big into that side of things. So I don't know if it's just maybe when I was younger, I kind of isolated myself and was the only person who kind of watched all them YouTube videos and listened to podcasts from an early age, and kind of you were surrounding yourself with that much. Like they always say, you surround like the 5 people you surround yourself much with the most, are the people who you kind of like that's who you kind of are. Even if you're not surrounding yourself with actual people, but with like videos, podcasts, articles, whatever it is, that's kind of who you become. And I can see it in myself. That's kind of where that passion and stuff and my interests came from, which is probably similar from yourself. The people who you've kind of looked at in magazines and whatever has probably created the reason that you are the way you are today.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm very similar to my parents in some ways, but then simultaneously, my mom and dad aren't really into fitness. So this is never something, aside from buying me a set of 10-kilo dumbbells for Christmas when I was 13 or 14, it's never been something that they've pushed me to do. However, in terms of like my own like skills and maybe even like education, I've always been better at doing things like physically, rather than being able to pass exams or write things, science, etc. I've always just been better off like having something where there's a physicality aspect, but then also a bit of thought, which is definitely influenced the things that I enjoy doing the most, because typically you'll enjoy the things that you are better at, especially when you're growing up through school. And then with that, as you said, you definitely sort of become an average of the people that you spend the most time with. Naturally, I spent time with people who were, a bit more like myself and enjoy doing things which had quite a big like physical aspect to it.
Mm-hmm. No, definitely. So what were you like after school? So how did you do GCSE wise and stuff like that? In A levels, did you go down that route, or what did you do after there?
Yeah, to be honest with you, I am absolutely bang average, right? My school went A, B, C, D, E, F, G in terms of your capabilities. And I was in D from year 7 right up until year 11 when that stopped being a thing. And so I've never ever been somebody who performed exceptionally in an academic aspect. When I done my A levels, I think I got CCD. So again, not amazing. But it was enough to get me into university, which was my second choice was Sunderland University. And actually, I think on the day I didn't get a yes, but then I didn't get a no on like results day. So I had to phone up the head of department to see, what they do. I think it's UCAS, isn't it? That the sort of system that they use to find out whether or not you've got into your choice of university. So I had to phone up the university and tell them these are the results that I got. Would you be able to give me a place? And I phoned up the guy who was the head of department, and he might still be to this day. He was called David Sheldon, and it just so happened that his son was also a rugby player for the club that I was playing for, which was Bladen. And I think that definitely had a hand in me getting accepted like into university. So maybe sometimes it is not what you know, but who you know, but then also what have you done to know who you know?
Mm-hmm. No, I understand. There's a lot of things in life. It is like a lot of who you know in terms of progressing and whatever it is. Especially we talk about the full podcast about football. A lot of time your progressions in football is the same sort of thing. So what did you study at uni?
So I studied a combination of sport and exercise development and sports science. Mm-hmm. Yeah, just very, very typical.
What in your mind did you kind of think you were going to do after uni or past that? What was going through your head, and when did the personal training side kind of click?
Yeah. So I think when you're finishing like a sports science degree, you're very aware that most people who finish that kind of degree tend to not go into the industry at all, or they go into the industry for a very short space of time and then they exit because they don't enjoy it. They're not getting paid enough. They don't feel valued enough. They don't want to teach 7-year-old kids to run around a cone or jump over a hurdle. So I always knew that I was never going to be able to go down the sporting route. I always knew that it would have to be something exercise based. And one of my friends, Jack, he was a personal trainer. So I sort of dropped him a message and said, what's that job role like? Do you get paid much money? Is it enjoyable? What do you actually do? What does it mean? And so he explained a little bit more about it. And yeah, I just thought, right, there's absolutely nothing else happening here. I'm not going to get a job, working as an S&C coach for a football team. It's not what interest is. I'm not into sport really at all. So it just, I just thought, right, Google personal training course, pick the first one that came up, and then in a really nice way, it started in September, which would be the start of the next academic year, and that was it.
Just took it from there. What was your first PT job? What was it like first few months? Was it slow, or did it kind of build up quite quick?
So during the course, I put some feelers out in, heard of a couple of opportunities, and actually started working in a private facility, which was in Ponteland. I worked there for a couple of months. Pay was probably similar to, what you would get working in a supermarket. It was, it wasn't great at all. And, if I wasn't living with my parents, I wouldn't have been able to sustain doing that job. Then at the same time, I sort of decided that I wanted to go and do like something extra because I physically wasn't able to get the hours or get the clientele that I wanted through working in that particular business. And me and my mate Jack decided to run a group training course because he had a lot more contacts. He'd been in the industry longer than me, but it took more than one person to run them. So when we So we then first sort of hired a gym. The person I was working for at the time wasn't happy with that. So I left him and we parted ways, which was something quite, maybe at the time you thought it was hard to take, losing your first job when you're 22. But looking back and, the way that I see that place has developed, it's absolutely atrocious. But yeah, so from there, I then joined up with Jack. We started running these group training courses, which, went relatively well. And at the same time, I started working at the Exercise for Less group. So I was at the gym in Benton from the first day that it opened, doing the Monday morning 6 a.m. class. Because I just kind of thought, right, if you're going to bring in some new clients, if people are going to be in the gym, if you're going to get your face noticed, Monday morning, 6 o'clock in the morning, you should probably be there, and I should probably be somebody who's talking pretty loudly so that people notice you. And that's from there, I was able to build more of a client base and work my way up through the rent and hour schemes, which they had at the time. And then just got to a point where I was really busy. I was the busiest personal trainer in there, doing 30, 40 sessions a week, and then decided, right, up my prices, maybe lose some clients, go back again. And then I just kind of got to a point where I always knew that I wanted to open up my own facility and my own gym. And it was actually part of a business plan that I'd done when I was at uni. It was part of my dissertation project. And it didn't plan out in the same way that I had, planned on paper. But from there, it then sort of just snowballed. Decided I stopped working with Jack, and we went in with my business partner now, Alex, and started up the first gym in Wallsend, which I managed to get through a client. Done boot camps and stuff in between working for other people. Built up more clients. Some of which I'm working with today that I would never have met if I hadn't went and done those things. Not that I particularly wanted to do them. The group exercise isn't my thing at all. But in the early days, a wide array of experience is definitely something which can play in your benefit moving forward.
I think some people are so quick to kind of say, right, I'm a one-to-one PT or I'm a group PT, rather than doing a little bit of it, even boot camps and stuff like that. Some people might frown upon boot camps and stuff like that. But as a PT, you can get 10, 15, maybe 20 clients in. It's just you can get a hit a lot wider, more people pretty much, rather than just being restricted at one-to-one. So don't be hesitant to kind of dive into different things, even if some people might say it's cringy, especially if you're kind of from a very strict bodybuilding background or you're into a certain type of training. Not every single one of your clients is going to be a bodybuilder or going to be a professional athlete. It could just be Debbie from down the road who wants to lose a little bit of fat and just get her moving kind of thing. So being open to different client bases, obviously you'll be the same. When you first started, you were happy to take as many clients as you want. It wasn't just right, I'm only training the people who I want to train the way that I train. So how did you kind of develop your own knowledge in terms of experience? Was it when you first started, were you very much in that mindset where I want to train people the way that I particularly train? Or was it kind of something that just as you went through the times that you kind of developed, I can't train everybody a certain way. There's different kind of approaches to training.
Yeah. So I wouldn't say that I worked with anybody that was particularly challenging where I didn't have enough skills to work with them. Whilst working at Exercise for Less, I was training with, lots of other people who followed a bodybuilding approach. But at the same time, I trained a couple of people who were in wheelchairs, and that definitely broadened my experience in that, you do just need to sort of find something that is going to be suitable for this person, in that moment and in that time. And I think I've always had a full body sort of approach, in that I always knew that I needed to, hit all these muscles across a certain time frame. In terms of saying I had a bodybuilding approach, it's, it would definitely be considered a bodybuilding approach, but that was never really at the forefront of my mind. And I think internally, I always knew that, right, this person's terrible at squatting. I can't really find out the reasons as to why they're terrible at squatting. I'm not able I didn't physically have the skills to recognize it at the time. I would have been 21, 22. So let's just try and do something that looks a little bit better and the person finds a lot more comfortable, which generally would be a leg press or a hack squat, or a walk and lunge. As much as people, dislike them, it looked better than this person who I thought would potentially blow their back out if they do another rep on the back squat.
Yeah. I think with any personal trainer, it's just you learn as you go through. You probably look back on a few years back and think, God, why did I do that exercise with that people? I think I had a little scroll through Instagram. There was a picture of you training a female client, and I think it was on the Smith machine, doing a squat, and the knees were actually behind the line of her ankles, and you captioned something like, what the hell was I doing to doing this sort of thing? But you do learn as you go. You're going to make them mistakes, and it might lose you a few clients previously, but you'll end up, you learn from it, and you'll end up keeping a couple of clients down the line. So it's just one of the things.
Yeah. Definitely. I think in this sort of industry, you want to make mistakes very, very quickly so you can get over them. 100%. Because at that time, you haven't really got that much to lose.
Yeah. The best time to make mistakes is when you're younger and there's less financial kind of overheads that you need to worry about. You can make mistakes. You've got room to grow. And a lot of people are so scared in they see what the PT industry is like with like a lot of gyms just like going through PTs like a conveyor belt. Like people are just quitting PTing early within like the first year and going to do another a quote unquote safer job. But if you stick at something for a long enough time, you're going to get better at it, which is why, like, how long have you been a PT now since when you first started?
Well, actually, before I jumped on this with you, I thought this would be a question that you would ask me.
Go on, then.
So I scrolled all the way back through my Instagram because that's how you find out what you used to do. And yeah, it was 2013 when I became a personal trainer and first started working as a PT, which now makes me feel really, really old. So it's been 8 years now.
God, that's it. See, if you look back at how much you've grown from then, if you quit after them 1 or 2 years, God knows what you would have been doing now. Did you ever come to a point where you thought about changing careers or anything along the line?
No, it is. I can confidently say that I haven't. I'm quite a stubborn and tenacious sort of person. I really don't want to let myself down, and I can tell myself like little things, like little consequences that would happen, if you don't do like X, Y, and Z. And those things might be real, they might not be real, but it sort of puts a lot more ownership on, the need to go out and execute, whatever it is that I plan to do. Sometimes those things might be, this person is going to think this way about you. This person is going to think that way about you. And it's, I suppose, in that circumstance, it's a delicate line to draw. But if you want it enough and you've got the skills, and as I said before, you're a tenacious person at heart, then that can be a valuable way of making sure that you tick the boxes that you need to tick and hopefully achieve what you've set out to do.
Yeah, it's just resilience. I think anybody who stays in a certain industry for a certain amount of time and does have success, they're going to have to be resilient, because there's going to be times where they're going to make mistakes, lose, especially in this industry, being self-employed, being a PT, you're going to lose clients. There might be times where you're really like, God, I need to get some clients here. But if you really want it bad enough, you'll find a way to make it work, rather than if you're not bothered, that's when you kind of jump ship and go and try and find something else. But that's probably the reason why there is only a certain amount of PTs that have been really successful, and obviously a lot who change careers. So what I was going to say.
Yeah, I think that I think just kind of going back to what you were saying there, where people become anxious, like if they lose a client, whether that client's not got the available funds anymore, or they decided that personal training is no longer for them. As long as you are someone who cares enough and is decent and can turn up on time, be empathetic to the person in front of you, you should always be able to have a full diary, because there's more than enough people out there who need your help and could do with your help and can afford your help. 100%. You've got to have I suppose the ability to just go out there and say, I am here, I can help you, drop me a message or knock on the front door or speak to them in person, etc.
Yeah, that's one thing that I thought was going to happen when I first started PT, and I thought they were going to be coming flooding through the door. Everyone's going to be messing me. So it's not. You've got to go out there and put yourself out there. You might see someone who actually might need help, whether you're doing shifts at a gym. You might see someone whose technique isn't that good. Go up to them and say, "Oh, here's a bit of advice that might help you out. Obviously, don't be like, you're doing that wrong.
Yeah.
This, that, and the other. Or even if you're on Instagram and you see someone who's like, I've seen one of my friends who I haven't seen for ages. He's just started getting back into the gym again. I just dropped the message saying, hi mate, if you need any help, I know you live down south, but we can do either online coaching, or if you're ever up north, I'll help. Like, just dropping the message, not being like, sign up to my PT or sign up to my online coaching. Just giving them like the offer, just say, I'm here to help if you need it. And they might message you 6 months down the line, might message you 2 years down the line, but like that sort of approach, like being open.
Absolutely. I mean, I've got somebody who I taught a boot camp to, that would have been back in 2013. Who you have on Facebook, you like blah blah blah. She's had 8 years of her life moving forward, and now she's in a position where it's like, actually, I really wanted to use your services for a while. Couldn't afford you, but now I can. Have you got any space available?
Yeah.
If I don't, it goes to one of the other guys, and like being able to communicate with people like that and just make links. It might be 7 or 8 years before you make that lead, or that person decides that it's time to contact you. There's certainly things that you can do yourself with your own marketing, in the way that you display your product or your service in order to bring that person in sooner. But first of all, you've got to take a step forward, and you've got to be able to put yourself out there.
100%. It's people skills as well. Being like one of them people that's like, especially when it comes to losing clients, the client can't like say like doesn't have the funds anymore to afford the personal trainer, or is maybe at a point where they're kind of like, you know what, I want to give it a go on my own. It's not being like, oh fine, and like I don't care about you anymore kind of thing. Always just checking on them every so often. I've had a few clients who have left me and just said, oh, like, I might be back like at some point, I'm going to take a break or whatever it is, or I'm done with it. And then every so often just check up on them, or like being kind of reasonable with them and being like, all right, I appreciate your time and your effort and stuff. You've done really well. They might message you 6 months down the line and be like, actually, hang on, I've lost my routine and stuff. I need your help again. So don't ever end it on a bad note. But yeah, you know it more than me. I've only been in the industry 2 years compared to what is it, nearly 10 years. So yes, if you're saying there's things like that, then 100% it's got to be true.
I think a lot of people also don't realize is that like if you have a bad experience with somebody, that person is likely to tell 6 or 7 people about their bad experience with you. Whereas if somebody has a good experience with you, and that I've decided to stop PT, maybe they're telling their friends, but they say, but this is what Brendan done for me before leaving. Isn't that nice? Or you sent me a card saying I've had a great time working with you. I can't wait to hopefully be able to work with you in the future, etc. People, generally, if people have a good experience, they'll tell less people, unfortunately. But if you shout loud enough, you do nice enough things, they might well tell more people. But that then opens the door to other people's networks in order to, that would allow you to generate more leads or generate more clients. And actually, I think that's something that many PTs are scared to ask for in a way, in that, when you're working with somebody, that almost automatically pre-qualifies their friends and their family to also work with you. Coming back to what we were saying before, you are the average of the people that you spend the most time with. And, if these people have got a good network, it's more than likely that a lot of these people would also be suitable to work with you. People, your personal trainers in general, just need to ask for that, or have a way of making an inroad to speak to those other people.
No, 100% agree. I'd probably say 75% of my clients have came from like other people talking about it rather than social media. Like social media is like a small part of it, but the face-to-face, the kind of word of mouth, the best way I think in terms of growing a business. Like I found myself, it'll be some of my clients who come to my boot camp, some of my clients who just come see me one-to-one. It'll be their friends, their sisters, their daughters, like whoever it is, anything like that. So word of mouth, I would probably definitely say.
Like as a business, as Pioneer Performance, we haven't advertised on social media probably for the last 6 years, because generally a lot of the people who come through social media, in that they send you a DM, tend to be lower hanging fruit clients, where they're looking for a good deal, or they're looking for something very short term. In my own experience, I don't tend to see, like, good clients who you want to work with, who are prepared to put the work in and are prepared to spend money on your services, they come through a direct message on Instagram. They tend to be people who have searched for your services rather than people who you are showing your services to. Now, don't get us wrong. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't use social media, but it needs to be more of a shop window approach in that this is what we do. This is how we do it. This is how we could help you, rather than, and this is where a lot of people sort of get it wrong in that, they put up now, got space in the mornings, now got space in the afternoon, got 6 sessions available between these dates. But generally, you're not going to find people who genuinely want to make a change and use the services over a long period of time doing marketing like that.
Yeah, I always find as well,
people who can afford your services aren't spending that much time on social media.
Yeah, I know that's another good thing. I was going to say, people who are constantly advertising the services and like, right, I've got 5 slots available on these days. It probably makes them look a little bit kind of, why aren't they busy? Like, it makes me probably question in terms of, is there, like, if I was like obviously a client, sometimes I'll like, look at it on social media, someone's constantly advertising, it's kind of as if they're in a desperation. So maybe there might not be, maybe they might just have a few slots, but from my perspective, sometimes it does come across that way when I see it quite a lot.
Yeah, I think, I definitely look at things from a slightly different perspective because I've been Pioneer Performance for such a long time rather than Matthew Walker. Matthew Walker personal training really stopped at exercise for lessons, didn't go any further than that. So, I've been running Pioneer for probably over 5 years now. And then the way that you portray yourself, like as a business versus an individual personal trainer, it definitely differs. A lot of the skills overlap heavily. But yeah, so that's where I suppose when I answer things, this is where I always tend to be coming from.
Yeah. No, I get what you mean. I can understand the mindset flip. So we'll talk about Pioneer Performance a little bit. So last we talked about when you were at Wallsend. What happened from there? How did you grow the business? Was it a lot of group stuff, or did you do a lot of one-to-one stuff at that time as well?
Yeah, so when we opened the Wallsend gym, our initial thought was because we were hiring other people's gyms at the time, me and Alex, to run like different courses. So we ran a couple out of other people's gyms. We were never really that impressed with the equipment. We always felt like we could do things better, but we pursued it. So then when I was able to open up the gym in Wallsend, which came through one of my clients, and I just said, I really want to open my own gym. You don't know anywhere that's like letting out space, do you? And then he actually said no first. And then like 10 minutes later, he said, actually, I'm a member of a board at a big historical building in Wallsend, and they've got a room on the top floor empty. Do you want to come have a look? It just went from there. And that we took this long, this big rectangular room, and then like one of the little offices next to it. A couple of weeks later, I decided actually we'll take the office next to that as well, and then sublet that to a physiotherapist. So we then built out that gym, got various bits of kit from all across the UK, was in a van every weekend, Glasgow, Birmingham, fucking Wolverhampton, just picking up various things and getting ready. So we then quickly outgrew that with, just another personal trainer and our physiotherapist, or sports therapist at the time, who was actually Alex Hurley, who is the owner of Hot Pod Yoga in Desmond and Whitley Bay. So he sort of had a career shift, so we moved to the Quayside, then developed an even bigger team of personal trainers where we had, Finn come on board, James, a few other people, and then sort of grew to like a team of 8 people. Realized the gym floor was still far too busy. So that was like 2 years ago now. And then we were at a point where people were foam rolling, on the, floor in front of the front door, and people were stepping over people. And we always thought, right, this isn't great now. And so that's when we sort of decided to put in a second floor in the gym, which was like a massive project. So we've done that at the end of 2019. So we finished it in like October, November time, 2019. And then that's kind of where we are right now. Various changes with regards to equipment. Like I'm always upgrading things. I'm always changing things based upon a lot of the courses that I do in my education around things, and generally seeing more of the things. that I like and learn about the body and biomechanics, and how we can use that to improve somebody's experience when they're working with us.
Yeah, I want to touch on the equipment side of things. I know you're big on the biomechanics things and everything like that.
Mm-hmm.
But back to so when you were growing, obviously Pioneer, was it quite a gradual sort of progression, or was there any bits where you're like getting a bit frustrated, like it's not growing the way I wanted to, or were you kind of, it was just kind of like bam, 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 bam?
It was, looking back, it was extremely, extremely gradual. I've always been somebody who enjoys the delayed gratification process. We had a lot of setbacks in the Wall's End gym, but it was never at a point where I thought, I can't be bothered with this. Like, one day we had we actually had water coming through the came. Looking back, it was absolutely ridiculous. We had water running internally through a wall and then coming out of the skirting board, and that flooded the gym four or five times. Bear in mind, we were on the third floor of a building. So that was quite a big setback at the time. And you were definitely in a position where it was like, right, we either get out of here ASAP, or you stop doing it. But the latter was never really in our mind, and we always knew that we could offer more with a bigger space. So we spent about 20 months in the gym room Wall's End, so just under 2 years, and then we were able to grow to a bigger, a lot more official sort of unit. The gym in Wall's End was very official, but we didn't have formal lease agreements written up or anything like that, which is in big deposits, which is kind of where we are now in the current unit.
Mm-hmm. So in terms of the level that you were at when you were at Wall's End, just for people who obviously maybe looking, who are personal trainers, or they're doing group stuff and they're maybe wanting to get their own facility, in terms of how busy were you in terms of an average day in during the week? Was it 7 days a week, or was it were you quite strict with having your time off and stuff like that, which is something I want to talk about, obviously having time off, but how busy were you in an average day?
A bit of both. I've tended to not work Sundays in general with clients. I've always had Sunday as a day of rest. But with that being said, if something needed painted or a machine needed picked up or disassembled, or any extra pieces of work, I've always done that on those days. So you can't really have any limitations in growing, not this kind of business anyways, in terms of what days you're going to work. But in general, I've always been Monday to Friday most of the time, sometimes occasionally Saturday mornings, which I don't really do that much of at the moment, unless I have to. But I'll work quite early in the morning until quite late at night still, but I'm getting better at that now.
Yeah, I can understand that I get told off for working on Sundays as well. I'm trying to have Sundays. I have Saturday, Wednesday evenings at the minute, I'm trying to have free, except for I've got 2 clients at the night, but my missus is out, so that's an excuse. I'll get away with that one. Same thing, Saturday afternoons off, and then Sundays, if I've got a little bit of online work and stuff to do. But having that was there a point where you were doing 7 days a week, or was there a point where you're kind of burning yourself out? Because I sometimes think that I hear a lot of people say that you have to have that period of being burnt out to get to a certain level, then you can back off a little bit and then maybe go again. What was it like for yourself?
I think you definitely grow through what you go through. I've always been somebody to recognize. I've always been able to recognize when things are getting on top of me too much and it's starting to become detrimental, and that can be detrimental twofold in that physically and psychologically you're not able to do your job in the way that you want to be able to do, but then two, you might ruin relationships of your partner or whoever you need to support you. I've always been somebody who's been quite happy to work very, very, very hard. I've been it now. I'm able to delegate more things to our gym manager Sam, and to the other PTs. The team here is absolutely fantastic. So I'm able to take a bit more time off now than what I used to be able to take off. But I would say that I've served my time in the 7 day a week, 10 to 6 in the morning till 10 p.m. at night mentality. But that doesn't mean that I won't go there again for the next phases of growth. You've got to be able to recognize when you need to do that and when it's time to take your foot off the gas. Right now, this holiday that I'm about to go on is me taking my foot off the gas, because like psychologically, I've been very, very engaged since March 2020 when we went into lockdown, in that I overanalyze things, I overthink things, and I'm making a lot of progress with that mindset and with doing that. But I'm at a point now where it's like, actually, I'm no longer able to fulfill the needs of other aspects of the business. So it's time to take some some leave. Which hence me going on holiday. And probably one of the areas of the business which I've been struggling with most is the creativity side, like the opportunity for like free thinking and essentially just being out of these four walls, so I can think about more things and be more productive.
No, it's so easy when you're that busy to get caught up in just being like, it's almost like you get stuck at the same level. Yes, you're really busy, which is good and things are going well, but you can never level up because you've got no time to think about leveling up. You've got like no spare time in the week. So like you said, taking that time out, like I found I was ill with COVID, which obviously wasn't great, but I had a good, obviously 10 days isolation, just to reset. I couldn't do any work or anything. And I found that mentally really good, even though obviously I was unwell and stuff, but it was kind of like, right, where do I actually want to go? Like I've been so busy with just focusing on clients, take my own workouts off, do my social media bits, obviously trying to keep podcasts going, all that sort of stuff, that I haven't had time to actually reflect and think, where do I actually want to go? Like you just kind of get stuck in the rabbit hole, in the circle, like on the hamster wheel, of just doing the same thing. Like you said, that you might go on this holiday and yes, it's going to be good to switch off and stuff, but you might have a little brainwave, or you might see something like, oh, that's a good idea. Like I could, or like, that's why I like to have my little, oh, sorry, I was going to interrupt you there. My little like hour in the day, first thing in the morning, I do like people will probably see it on Instagram, I stretching and I listen to a podcast. And that's kind of my hour each day that like, I can think. Go on, you're going to say something.
That's great that you've got something there that you can go to, I suppose, like as your anchor to allow a little bit of free thinking. Like for me, what you've just said there, I know that'll happen. That as soon as I start driving this van through Scotland, I'll have loads of ideas come to us, and I'll be in my notes like forever, writing things down and making voice notes, etc. I can confidently say that I'm not somebody that ever really switches off. Like I don't fully switch off. I don't fully disengage. Maybe I'm worse off for it. Who knows? I'll probably never know, to be honest. But definitely having like a reduced capacity. So, no longer like running at 100%, reducing that down to, like 50 or 60%, of free headspace. Like that is all I need to then like move myself forward.
Mm-hmm. What's your sort of headspace escape? Is it training? Is it, obviously I know you've got a dog yourself as well, so is it walking the dog? Yeah. What's your switch off? And is training a switch off for you? Is that something else in its own aspect?
Training in this gym isn't switch off, which is unfortunate because I've got some of the best bits of kit that you can't even really buy now because nobody sells them. So that's unfortunate. I'm never really switched off in here. So when I like occasionally I'll go to Ultraflex in Durham on a Friday night for like some 6-7 o'clock and train lower body. That is a good switch off for me. Driving is a massive switch off. Like that's something that I love to do. Like I've been into cars, ever since before I could even walk. So that's something that hence traveling around Scotland in a van. Like I will be able to. That'll be the time where I'm able to switch off the most because you haven't got the opportunity to engage with your phone. It's you, the road, music, whoever's with you, and that's it. Yeah, driving. That's my biggest switch off. That's my anchor, I suppose.
Are you a podcast man, or is it just more music to switch off?
I wouldn't switch off with a podcast. If I was listening to a podcast, it would be related to this industry. So I'm making notes, thinking about how I can apply different principles and aspects to like my own life and my own business. Yeah. So I think with anything to do with this industry, like I'm on and I'm thinking about what I can use, what I can't use.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I find that that's one thing because I love listening to podcasts on the industry, but kind of flipping it over. one of the podcasts that I've been enjoying, the Muscle Mentors. Obviously, I know that you're still currently getting coached. Obviously, we'll touch about that in a minute.
Yeah, so I'm still working with James.
Yeah. So I've been listening to a few of their podcasts, but I've noticed that like now there's a lot more of them now. There's kind of a little bit of a comical side of it.
Right.
Is it Paul? I can't remember. Is it Paul?
Paul Standall? Yeah.
He's nice quite an energetic.
Yeah, very energetic.
Outgoing. So that sort of like, he brings that sort of fun side to, obviously we talk about training and all exercise mechanics and all that, but they kind of put like a bit of a story and they kind of talk about like Lord of the Rings and random stuff. So that sort of thing I get away with, but when it's like really, really deep training, sometimes I kind of leave that to other things. But Modern Wisdom's another one that I'm quite enjoying listening to as well.
Yeah. I've listened to Modern Wisdom a couple of times. He gets some really like high profile guests on. But Paul, which you might know, you might not know, he used to be an actor, so he's got a lot of energy to bring to the table, and he knows his stuff a lot. I've had the pleasure of doing some RTS stuff with Paul. He's a really good guy.
Yeah, go on. We'll talk a bit about training. Obviously, some of the mentors you've had previously. Have you always been into? Have you always had a coach? Have you always been to seminars, mentors? Is that something that you've always kind of like really would want to do?
Yeah. So very, very early on, I recognized that in order to stand out in this industry, you need to be doing like other things, and you need to be learning like all of the time. Because really, your PT course might qualify you, but it doesn't qualify you to really work. It doesn't give you the skills that you need to work with an individual. So some of the first person that I really engaged with on a CPD basis was Phil Learning. Are you familiar with Phil?
I know the name, but because again, it's probably been popped up on podcasts and stuff. But no.
So Phil's probably maybe in like his early 40s now. And it's interesting that you don't know him, because everybody you don't know of him that well, because everybody who is my age in this industry like would go heavily like towards him, because he was really the first person who started putting out specific continuous professional development for personal trainers. Like he was the first person that really started marketing like to this industry. And the very first seminar that I went to him was called Advanced Nutritional Strategies, which was probably in 2014 out of a gym in Manchester somewhere. And he had about 120 people there. And it was like £160 a ticket. And it was like, and everybody was hanging off every single word that he said. And looking back now, the advanced nutritional strategy stuff and he would probably openly say this in that, anything he was saying then was far too complicated for a client. And it's not really the approach that you should use with most of the general population. But he's adapted a lot and he's grown a lot. And I don't really engage with a lot of his stuff now, because I feel like it's much more geared to people who are like new to the industry. But he was the first person who I really started looking at with regards to like, how can I serve my clients better? How can I get this person to listen to me? How can I get this person to lose more body fat, etc. Moving on from there, I've always really liked Mark Coles, who I was fortunate enough to do a 6-month mentorship, which was probably, that would have been about 5 years ago now. So maybe 2015, 2016 sort of time frame. So I did a 6-month mentorship with Mark, who, definitely helped us create a lot more like processes within this business. Because stepping into it, managing a team of people, of which I think everybody apart from my business partner Alex was older than us, so it was a bit of a weird sort of like psychology, which I don't experience at all now, because I've just grown and developed like as a person, and recognizing like exactly what I want for Pioneer Performance. So Mark Coles, he was also really good with the like personal development stuff, and probably gauged like a lot of the like early like mechanics stuff and making exercise better like through him as well. I've never really been one to go to a lot of the people who were on the, latest My Protein advert for training advice or anything like that. Again, I think that maybe comes back to me not wanting to follow a crowd. And then I've heavily been influenced, like business wise. I've always loved the stuff that Nick Mitchell does with UP. Somebody who just is able to dominate like this industry. Very, very, very few people have 2 gyms that are successful. He's probably got maybe just less than 20 now across the globe, which sounds, I can't imagine like how that machine like works and runs. But I've always admired many of the things that he says. And I've been fortunate enough to connect with a lot of the people that work with him now and manage those gyms, learning different things on how to improve a client experience really.
So do you implement a lot of like the stuff that you've learned from the mentors and stuff in your own thing? Because I've always been, people are probably in a similar situation when they're kind of hesitant to go and invest the money in these mentors because maybe they're thinking, oh, well, if they've learned it through a certain thing, maybe I can learn it through my own mistake, which I think is a good point. Obviously, you do learn a lot from the mistakes that you've made previously and stuff like that. But do you kind of swear by mentorship and always kind of put yourself into and listen to other people's ideas?
Absolutely not. But in the same sentence, I value being accountable. We paid probably £1,000 a month for that mentorship, which was a lot of money, especially for where we were at. But we knew that it would force us to do the things that needed to be done for the business to work and for the business to grow. If I was going to recommend any advice like to people who were in a similar situation to me, is that I would always, if you were going to get a mentor, you've got to get somebody who has done what you want to do. So for me, I needed to have somebody else who owned a gym that I looked up to. And, we definitely ticked that box in working with Mark Coles, and he was a really great guy. Some of the things looking back, I wouldn't do or didn't really work for our particular business. And maybe we were copying what worked for him, but wasn't really going to work for us because we had slightly different structures, different areas, different demographics, different price points, etc. But you've got to find somebody who has done what you want to do, or you've got to find somebody around you who runs a business, who has a business, and is quite open to giving you critical advice in order to help you do what you want to do. And I think at the same time, throughout running this business, I've always had somebody who'd done that, which was one of our clients, Amy. So Amy she ran a very big marketing company, which wasn't something, I'm not sure if it still is or not. But she was always able to help us out with like the website aspect of things, making sure we had, the correct forms for getting lead generation, making sure things worked effectively, making sure we were asking our clients for feedback all of the time, in order to, in the feedback that we get from our clients, it allows us to grow the business, make it better, and allow it to become a more profitable entity. You keep high quality clients for a longer period of time, and you're able to serve people more, which is ultimately what we're here to do. We're here to help somebody get the results, that they've came to us for, whatever that might be, whether that's gaining muscle, whether that's gaining confidence, whether that's being able to recover from an injury, etc. Like a lot of personal trainers forget that they're in the service industry and they're here to help somebody. So having her just give us a really gentle or sometimes a really hard ear and telling us what you need to hear, what is going wrong. It is one of the most valuable things, that I could really tell anybody, any business owner to do. Give your clients the opportunity to give you completely anonymous feedback, and you can do that using Google Forms these days, or you can do that using SurveyMonkey these days, where people can be brutally honest with what they think of you. And as long as you're a person who is of growth mindset, you should be able to take away a lot of value from that. And actually, looking back now, that was the foundation of us stopping group training. So we found that we weren't able to, but this is at Wall's End. When we were doing the group training, we recruited a lot of our one-to-one clients into doing it, which was a big mistake, but I was 22, The feedback form that we gave to people so many of them openly said, I just want to go back to working with you one-to-one. I'm quite happy to pay double the price.
Yeah, feedback, that's like something that I've started integrating. Feedback's massive, isn't it? And I know a lot of people who swear by the group training side of things, but if you are going to switch to that, switch over to that without asking the clients, like, what do you actually think about it? Like, you're going to end up losing them at the end of the day. It's great that you're very open about it.
Group training is an extremely profitable business. It is far more, as a gym owner, it is far more profitable than one-to-one coaching. However, that doesn't provide me with the sense of fulfillment that I want. I'm not able to build the relationships that I want with people. And there's a lot of pressure in order to fill like numbers, etc., by a certain time. And I was never very happy with that. I don't want to get to the 12th of August and say, fucking hell, I'm sorry for swearing. I'm meant to have 18 people by this date, and I've only got 6. Like, what I'm going to say to these 6 people? Do I push it back? Do I just do it and lose money? It was a position that we found ourselves in so many times. And actually, I've always said this, is that I don't actually think you can run it's very, very challenging to run a one-to-one business and a group training business side by side. They as long as they're in the same 4 walls and they've got the same brand, and you're trying to marry or differentiate different products like within the same environment with the same people using the same tools, it's so challenging to get people to engage with one and then get another group of people to engage with another, because that they are ultimately the different customers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like what you said there about like you feel like you weren't satisfied in the group training thing, because I'm exactly the same. I love the building relationships with people and like working with them one-to-one. I know a lot of my clients probably prefer that sort of thing. And like I said before, I think a lot of people are forced into the group aspect because they think more clients in at once, more free time, more money. It's not at the end of the day, obviously we need to make money at the end of the day, but it's about satisfaction and what kind of makes you happy and what makes your clients happy long term. Never mind like what other people are doing, and you see the figures that they're making doing a group thing. Like, focus on what you enjoy doing. And if I would say to people, if I enjoy doing what I'm doing now for less money than what someone else is doing who's maybe making double, whatever, but if I'm satisfied and that's giving me the satisfaction and my clients are getting the results, that's the main thing at the end of the day.
And it sometimes it does come down to like where you sit ethically with things. So you might see a lot of group training businesses doing really well, buying new kit, drive nice cars, etc., etc. But what you don't know is that over the 7 classes over the course of a day, for an hour, that coach or that business owner stood there saying, God, that person's squat is really, really bad. They shouldn't be doing that, but I can't give them anything else. And like for somebody carrying that around with them, knowing that this person is probably going to blow a kneecap out soon, or have some sort of like significant injury, it really just come down to like to where you lie. And that that maybe that's an extreme view. That's not always the case, but I've got friends who have worked in the F45 franchise, which is an amazing franchise, like incredible. Again, another business model that's been able to go worldwide. And it's definitely got that a bit more of like club, like good vibes, sort of atmosphere. And it's something that we can always take things from. You can take many things from things that are successful, whether they're in this industry or directly related to you or not. But it depends on what you want the person in front of you to achieve. And if you're not happy with the way that somebody moves, or this about this joint and that person is not going in the right direction, your ability to fix things in a group atmosphere is really, really challenging.
Yeah, I know. And I think a lot of the time that's where people, like you said there, a lot of people do get the injuries and stuff. And people do maybe strive off the group environment. Some people do love it, but I think that probably a lot of people need that one-to-one PT aspect to actually get to a certain level. Maybe if you do that down the line, you have a certain amount of clients who work with you one-to-one for a amount of time, get the technique right, then they could maybe transition over to it. But then it's just getting the balance right. It is a tough to kind of balance the both, like you said.
Yeah, and as a business, the way that our gym is kitted out, we are here to provide the most to a person like at any one time. We're not here to try and provide the most to 12 people like at any time. And I think to like genuinely move an individual forward, you need that one-to-one aspect, and you need that relationship with your coach who, is totally entirely like, on your side, like, there to hold and keep you accountable. I think that the technology now that you've got like within group training is excellent, and you can do all of those things which I've said, like even more, and deliver like a higher level of service. But I don't get the sense of, I know that I wouldn't get the sense of fulfillment from doing that, which is why we don't. And everybody who works with us feels the same way. And there's a reason that we were able to charge the money that we charge now, and it's been built upon us trying to get that individual moving forward faster in the most effective way possible, working with them on a one-to-one basis.
100%. There's definitely pluses and negatives to both sides of training, but it's whatever works best. And I think the best thing about the one-to-one is you're going to get quality out of it, and you're going to that individual person is going to get the best service possible rather than in a group aspect. So where do you see Pioneer going within the next 5, 10? Where would you like it to go? In the ideal picture, do you want it to be a huge kind of franchise it and have gyms all over, or would you just rather have the one Pioneer gym and have it the best possible place? Or is this all secret? You don't have to tell me if you've got secrets and stuff planned.
Yeah, I'm really open, to be honest. Like I rarely keep secrets. I definitely could see myself, like, for me personally, like I want to divert, like if there's something that the pandemic has told us, it's that we need to be more diverse. The fitness industry got like completely shut down. Like if, you do need to have a more diverse source of income. Moving forward, Pioneer is going to be delivering more education stuff to clients. And that'll probably be within the facility or combined with some online stuff. So whether that's going to be to coaches or like maybe like a bit more like exercise enthusiast stuff, because we have a lot of people who are heavily into training look at the gym and then start following us, which is always a really good thing. But this is where I need to improve on my creative side and engage more with social media, because I don't actively dislike it, but I don't go as far forward as what I need to with it, and I'm quite open with that right now. It's not good enough. It needs to level up. Maybe hence this microphone. Who knows? But we'll be doing some educational stuff moving forward. I think that if we got the opportunity to grow the gym bigger, we will. Maybe whether that's another floor in here, possibly. But I've definitely got an equipment list, which is sort of continuously ongoing. But then I've also bought some duplicates of like things that we already have in here. So if we did want to create another one, like somewhere else, we could do it at a relatively like fast speed. And so, yeah, I wouldn't say that I'm not actively looking to open up another gym, but maybe some of my actions like say otherwise. I've not got any locations or anything like that. I would like to see 2 gyms, but we need to nail down more parts of our processes before we're able to do that. So I'm always happy for any opportunities that sort of come by. That doesn't answer your question at all.
No, it doesn't. I'm happy with that. I'm happy with that. It's just one of them things where like you've kind of, you understand what you need to do, and when you get to a certain point, if that opportunity opens up another window and then you're going to take it. It's one of them things where it's just see how it goes kind of thing. But there's always going to be room to grow, and you never know what can happen. There was one question before we're finished with the little Q&A that I wrote at the bottom. Because obviously you've been busy over the years growing the gym and stuff like that. How has your own training had to adapt, and has there been periods where you've had to sacrifice your own training? Because that's one thing, being a personal trainer and being in the industry. A lot of people become personal trainers, but go to the gym originally for vanity, for the self, for their own training. Have you had to sacrifice your training at times, and what's it looking like currently as well?
So I've definitely had to sacrifice my own training at times. I would have been sacrificing my own training right now if I wasn't working with James, which is why I decided to start working with James. Because again, obviously it's clear coming out from this conversation that I do well, like with accountability and somebody saying, you said you were going to do this, we need to do it. So I actively put those things in place for where I need them. So my training right now tends to be sort of like more of an upper body push day, upper body pull day, then a what's day three? Day three is then a full body day where I sort of where it includes like just some quads and hamstring curls. And then I've got a fourth day, which is sort of optional, based upon my diary, which tends to be like arms, abs, and calves. A lot of people laugh when I tell them that, or a lot of the coaches in here do. And then on my last day of the week is a lower body day. Yeah, right. Which when I definitely need accountability with lower body training right now because it's quite hard, it's quite heavy, and it's very long, which is why I take myself off to Ultraflex pretty much every Friday to deliver that, because I know that I can do a better job of it there rather than in the gym, because I'll just procrastinate.
Yeah, I know, 100%. I think the accountability aspect of things is what a lot of people need to kind of take it to the next level, especially if you're something like a busy professional like yourself. Having that accountability is going to force you to do something. Was there periods where you were literally not training at all because you were too busy with things, or you've always kind of at least got like 2 or 3 days in a week?
Yeah. So the only times when I haven't ever trained like would be when there's been something really significant going on with the gym. So either that was moving the gym from Wall's End to the quayside, or that, installing the mezzanine in the gym. But I would be too physically exhausted to actually train, and it will probably be something that would be negative, and it would induce a negative effect rather than a positive effect.
Mm-hmm. Have you had any aspirations of competing, or would you see yourself as more of a businessman rather than an athlete in a sense, if you get what I mean? Because obviously you're in good nick and stuff, you could probably go down that route. Have you thought about it, or is it more business?
So I think that's it's been something that has never ever really been on my radar to compete. Like I said at the start, I enjoy the process of things more than I do like the actual competition. Maybe when I first started training, that was like when people say, "Oh, you go to the gym," like, "Oh, so do you compete?" There's probably a higher ratio because there was less people going to the gym. There was a much higher ratio of people who go to the gym and compete than what there is now. So it's never really been something on my radar. I massively appreciate it. I understand it to a certain degree because I've seen a lot of my very good friends go through it. But what I see them go through in order to achieve that isn't something that would be very like fulfilling for me.
Yeah, no. So we might see you down the stage in a few years, maybe. But I think, I've spoken to a lot of people who are maybe not. I've spoken to a few people who are in a similar situation yourself, own a gym. They've had that aspirations when they were younger of competing, but now they're a businessman, and it's going to be detrimental to their progress if they do want to try and compete to the levels that you need to.
I think that it's something a lot of people tell themselves they need to do in order to like pre-qualify them to do something. Mm-hmm. And for myself, I've never really felt that. A lot of people feel like they need to be a name before they open a gym, or they need to be, they need to have this status before they work with XYZ. And that might actually be applicable if you're working with people who compete. But because we work with the general population, it's never been something that I've felt like a massive need to go and do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was going to say, if you do want to compete and you want to be a certain, or work with a certain amount of clients or a type of client, competing is going to open up a wider client base for you. Like when you turn pro as a bodybuilder or whatever it is. So, but depends who your target market is and stuff. Definitely. Go on. We'll wrap up with the last 3 questions. Did you have a look at the little Q&A right at the end?
I did.
Good. Because I'll give people a little bit of time to prep for these last few, because they can catch a few people out. So first question: 3 people you'd like to invite round for dinner or go out for a coffee with, past or present?
Okay. So I think Nick Mitchell, owner of Ultimate Performance. Definitely bring him around. Arnold Schwarzenegger, just for the crack. Really, I think you'd have some good, some good stories to tell, and a lot of experience. And number 3,
it's always a tough one. Some people say like the mum or dad or the grandma. I've had a few people just say that. I'd have my grandma around for tea. She makes a good cuppa.
Yeah. I would bring back maybe my dad's dad, because I never really got to know him.
There we go. Perfect. I like that one. I think Arnold's the most ticked off person who everyone wants to. I think he's up there. He's definitely up there.
He's getting cancelled at the moment.
Is he?
Yeah. Well, just because he said he doesn't think people should have the freedom to make vaccine. But yeah,
all right. I haven't been. I'm terrible with politics and news and stuff. I need to get myself there. But next one, 3 people you'd want to train with.
Yeah. So again, I would like to train with Nick Mitchell from UP. Number 2, there's a fella called Milos, who's a bodybuilder who's got like an insane sort of work ethic in terms of the way that he's able to get people training. So I would like to train with him, although it would scare me a lot. And then probably the last one would be someone like CT Fletcher.
Yeah, old school. He was one, like I said, him and Mike Rashid, one of the first ones that I kind of came across when I was starting to look into lifting and gym and the old videos, overtraining and all that sort of stuff. I used to love it. Perfect. Yeah. And then last one thing you'd say to yourself 5 years ago.
I found this one quite hard to answer. So I've really sort of kept it simple and that, don't be afraid, just feel fast.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Lovely way to end it. I always like that last question, just to have a little bit of self-reflection, which I'm a big believer in self-reflection. But it's been an absolute pleasure having you on, mate. I'll tag the gym's Instagram, website, and everything down below in the comments and the show notes. Quickly shout out your Instagram if anybody wants to give you a follow.
Yeah. So my Instagram's just Matthew Walker. Pioneer, and then the gym's Instagram is just Pioneer Performance.
Yeah, like I said, I'll put them all down below. You're gonna keep you accountable now. You're gonna be more active on the socials.
Absolutely, nice one.
Perfect, mate. Well, thank you very much for coming on anyway. Appreciate it a lot.
Awesome, mate. Take care.
Cheers.
Bye.